Hello, my name is Judith Evans. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the IC cold store audits. The IC energy audits were carried out as one of the initiatives within the IC project. The people who were involved in the audits were selected from the benchmarking survey. If you want to find out a little bit more about the benchmarking survey, there's another webinar which deals with how we collected the information and how it was analysed and the results from that benchmarking survey. But as part of that survey, participants could volunteer for a free energy audit, and from those people we selected 28 cold stores from across Europe. The cold stores were selected to provide a range of different facilities. There were different sizes, different usages, different types of foods. And the audits were carried out in 5 countries. They were carried out in the UK, in Belgium, in Italy, Denmark and Bulgaria. With the idea was that we'd have a range of different ambient conditions, different local conditions, possibly even different cultures within the country. The reasoning behind the audits was to show the potential of a more detailed audit. Often cold store operators have audits, but they tend to concentrate maybe on one aspect of the store, maybe just the refrigeration system or just the lighting, for example. So overall the aim was to help companies reduce their energy consumption, but also to provide them with accurate information and the payback potential of any improvements. We also offered an additional service which was for cold store operators to take up additional help through the non-technical barriers work. The idea behind this was that not all energy saving is due to technical issues. There are non-technical issues as well, and this is covered in one of the other webinars which talks about the non-technical barriers work. And also within the IC project we provided a range of assistance to cold store operators. We wanted to know whether this type of information was useful to them, whether they'd use it and how they'd use it. In terms of the information that was collected from the audits, all the participants in the audits could remain anonymous, but they did all agree that we could use the information for future work. And so we used that information for a number of different other initiatives, such as using information in case studies to show advantages of installing energy efficient equipment. We used it to validate the mathematical models and the web-based tools. We also used it in the info packs because we had a range of different information that was relevant to cold store operators, so that we could use it to make sure the info packs were relevant to those users. Also we used it in the e-learning packages to make sure that the information we were providing was relevant to cold store operators. In terms of the auditing process, we did 2 things. We assessed the heat loads on the store and then looked at the efficiency that heat was extracted. So we measured or calculated transmission, infiltration, lights, fans, people, machinery and food as heat inputs, and then we looked at the efficiency that heat was extracted by the refrigeration system and calculated either a coefficient of performance or a coefficient of system performance. In terms of what we measured, sometimes we were able to use the logging system at a cold store, but more usually we installed our own kit to measure temperatures, pressures and energy around the refrigeration plant. Typically we measured compressor suction and discharge temperatures and pressures, evaporator suction and liquid temperatures, air on and off to the evaporator. Also power used by the compressors, fans, lights, defrosts, forklift charging if it was available. We also looked at the heat loads from people, forklifts, infiltration, transmission and food. So you can see in this picture where we measured the temperatures shown using the thermometer and pressures shown using the gauges, and the energy we measured at the fans, the compressors around the refrigeration system. So in terms of the results from the audits, we divided the issues that we found in each of the audits into generic areas. So we divided it into areas such as subcooling, superheat, insulation, defrost, lighting, and this is the results that we came up with. You can see that no one issue tended to dominate, that we tended to have a lot of issues that had an impact across all of the cold stores. The most highly rated were system design, control of evaporator fans, control of compressors, condensing pressure, infiltration and lighting. But all the issues had some impact, and some of them had quite high energy impacts. In terms of the skill required to be able to remedy these actions, we divided it into 3 areas. There's some aspects of the energy saving initiatives that could be made improved by the user. There's some that require a refrigeration engineer and some that require a specialist. And you can see that the user themselves can actually solve about 25% of the issues with just some training, the type of information that was provided as part of the IC project. There was really 3 levels. There was the simple options that the cold store manager can solve. These are things like door opening, lighting, fans and transmission. For example, they could use the IC simple or complex model to do some of these calculations. There's more complex options which a refrigeration engineer might be required to implement. These are things like controlling superheat, subcooling, leakage of refrigerant. And these are things that could be carried out on a reasonably regular audit by a refrigeration engineer to check that these things are still right and don't need any adjustment. You then come on to areas that really a skilled analyst, a specialist, needs to deal with. These are more detailed issues dealing with controls, efficiency of components, and often you need a reasonable level of data recording, something similar to what we did within the audits. In terms of efficiency, we actually found there was a huge range of efficiency within the stores that we audited. This tends to corroborate previous work where we found there was potential to reduce energy by often up to 60% in cold stores. However, one of the things we found is that the options are not necessarily generic, they're often specific to a facility. And so, although we tried to provide some general advice from the audits, and to a certain extent we were able to, we weren't able to provide, for example, a list of 3 things that you must do in all cold stores. The audit showed that the savings, we could save up to 72% savings on some stores. Some stores there was very low savings. Typically we were saving 20 to 30% of the energy. And the paybacks on the investments that were suggested were often less than 1 year. A lot of the paybacks were in several months. So if any of this has interested you and you want to find out more about the IC project, please go to the IC website. Also, if you wanted to find out a little bit more detail about some of the audits that we carried out, there's 3 other webinars which deal specifically with information from specific audits. And so if you'd like to find out a little bit more about the audit we carried out at a dairy processing facility, potato storage facility, then please look at those as well.